Good morning to all our Sunday School friends. We're glad that you joined us again today. Now, if you've been watching over the past few weeks, we know that we've been working through our beginning of the Bible. We started in the book of Genesis. And a few weeks ago, we learned about a man named Abraham. Do you remember the promise that God made to Abraham? God said that Abraham would be the father of a great nation, and he would have lots of descendants, meaning lots of family, children and children's children and children's children's children. Remember, we talked about that. And so that's what happened. He did have a lot of children, and his children had children, and they had children. You remember Joseph that we learned about the last couple weeks? Well, Joseph and his brothers were descendants of Abraham. So they were part of Abraham's family too. So he had a lot of children. So if we have Abraham here, his descendants grew. His family became bigger and bigger. Did you ever make a paper chain of people? I'm going to pretend this is my family right now instead of Abraham's family. So if it's my family, I have my mom, my husband, me, my son, Jesse. Do you know Pastor Jesse is my son? Yeah. And my daughter, Kristen, and my daughter, Kaisha. So that's my family, or at least it was my family, but now my family's gotten bigger. I'm going to show you that. Do you ever make a paper chain? You can make a paper chain of your family. You just take a piece of paper and you fold it back and forth like an accordion or a fan, as many times as you have people in your family. And then you're going to draw a person. And the most important thing is to stick their arms out right to the edge of the paper. I'll show you mine. See? And then I'm going to cut this out. Start at the edge. Now I'm not going to cut through the end of their hands or their arms. Just going to cut around that and all the way around. So I left their hands together there. Go down here. I'll cut across and I'll go back and cut their legs because that's always a little harder to cut. Let's see, cut up here. All right, let's see. And end up with all my grandchildren. Let's see. Oh, there they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 grandchildren. So if you take my family, there. Okay, and then you add all these grandchildren. Look at that. My family's getting bigger and bigger. Well, that's what happened to Abraham. His family got bigger and bigger. So Joseph and his brothers were in Egypt, you remember, when we last left them. And Joseph had forgiven his brothers, and the Pharaoh, who really liked Joseph, blessed all of them with more land, and they prospered, and they got married, and their family grew bigger, and they had children, and there was lots and lots of them filling up the land. And that was a good thing for them, except the Pharaoh didn't remain in power. I guess he died, I don't know. And so another man became the Pharaoh, and he didn't know Joseph. Joseph and his brothers had died also, and their descendants were still living in that land. But there was more and more of them. And so this new king, or this new Pharaoh, was worried. And I'm going to pick up our story in Exodus chapter 1, verse 8. It says, "Then a new king who did not know about Joseph came to power in Egypt. 'Look,' he said to his people, 'the Israelites have become too numerous.'" There was too many of them. "Come, we must deal with this shrewdly. They will become more numerous, and if they do and war breaks out, they will join our enemies and fight against us and leave our country." So the Egyptians became slave masters over the Israelite people and oppressed them into forced labor, and they made them build their cities. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. The more Hebrew people there were, the more of the Israelites there were. So this Pharaoh, he was not a very nice man, and he was very worried about this. So he came up with a terrible, terrible plan. And his plan was to take all the new baby boys that were born, all those little baby boys, and to throw them into the Nile River and kill them. Isn't that terrible? And his thought was, if there were no baby boys, then they couldn't grow up to be strong men, and they wouldn't be able to fight the Egyptians. So at that time, there was a baby born. And his name, well, I'm not going to tell you his name there, but he was born to his mom, and his mom was one of the Hebrew women. And he was a wonderful baby, just as all babies are wonderful. And she didn't want to see him thrown into the river and killed, so she kept him hidden for 3 months. Now, can you imagine hiding a baby for 3 months? Think about all the things that babies need. I looked it up online. What do you need to take care of a baby nowadays? Oh, there was a whole list of things, and here's just a few of them. You might need some clothes for the baby. We have a little onesie. Here we have some bottles, so the baby has something to eat. Of course, the baby needs to sleep somewhere. So here we have a crib for the baby. And we need to keep the baby safe when we go to the doctor, so we have a car seat. And we know that babies need diapers, so we have diapers here. And a pacifier so our baby doesn't fuss. And we've got some blankets to keep the baby warm. And here's a stroller so that we can go places with the baby, and some socks to go with the shirt. And here's a rattle so our baby has something to play with. That's a lot of stuff. Can you imagine keeping a baby hidden and keeping all that stuff hidden for 3 months? Well, while you're thinking about that, let's play a game, okay? Our game is that I'm going to take something away, and you have to see if you can figure out what I took away, okay? I'm going to use this board I have to hide my picture up here. Okay, don't peek. Cover that up for a second. Put it down. Can you figure out what did I take away? What's missing? It was right here. Do you know what it is? If you said the baby bottles, you are right. Let's try it again. Take something away. Don't peek. Can you figure out what I took away? If you said the car seat, you're right. Okay, we're going to do it one more time. Okay, see how smart you are. Look at all the things I have. Okay, what did I take away? You know, it was up here, right? It was the baby's clothes. Board back down. That's a game you can play with objects you have at home. But now back in Moses' time, I don't know if they had car seats. And he was only really little. He probably didn't have a rattle, and I don't know if pacifiers were invented. So she didn't have all these things. But still, babies make some noise and they cry sometimes, and you have to have some things for the baby. So after he was 3 months old, Moses' mother thought she needed to do something to keep her baby safe. So she found a basket, just a basket like this. And she took some tar and she spread it inside, because baskets aren't waterproof, but she wanted her basket to be waterproof. So she put some tar inside, and she took her baby, and I'm sure she hugged him tight and held him for a long time. And then she put him in that basket, and gently she set that basket in the Nile River. Now she was very hopeful that something good was going to happen. She didn't know what it was, but she knew that probably God had some plan in mind to keep her baby safe. And I told you about that terrible plan the Pharaoh had to kill all the babies. Well, God did have a plan, and God's plan was going to save all those Hebrew people. But that plan started with that baby, Moses. So let me tell you what happened. After she put Moses into the Nile River, and he had a sister named Miriam who was older than him, and she asked Miriam to keep watch. Miriam, see what happens. Make sure he's okay. So I'm going to pick up our story in Exodus chapter 2, verse 5. And it says there, when the Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank, she saw the basket amongst the reeds and sent her slave girl to get it. She opened it and she saw the baby, and he was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies, she said. And then his sister Miriam asked Pharaoh's daughter, should I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Yes, said Pharaoh's daughter. So the girl went, and she got Moses' mother. She got the baby's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you. So the woman took the baby and nursed him. And when the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water. So God really watched over Moses, didn't he? God watched over Moses, and he kept him safe. He allowed the Pharaoh's daughter to find Moses. And then guess what? Miriam said, I'll go get someone to take care of the baby for you. And guess who that was? That was Moses' own mother. So his own mother got to care for him and raise him until he got old enough to go live at the Pharaoh's daughter's home. And the Pharaoh's daughter named him Moses. Isn't that amazing? So God was watching out for Moses. God had a plan for Moses, and God was watching out for Moses. Even when Moses was a little baby, God was watching out for him. So let's think about that. When you were a baby, who watched out for you? And who's watching out for you now? God is. God watches out for you, and God sent your family, your friends, neighbors, people who are taking care of you to watch out for you. And do you know that God has a plan for you too? Now, I don't know what that plan is. I don't know if you have any idea, but I know that God has a wonderful plan that you can glorify God's name in your life through the plan God has. Now, I know it because God tells us that too in the Bible. That's kind of a verse we want to remember today, and it's in the book of Jeremiah. Let me see if I can find. I have a little tab here to show me where Jeremiah is. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." God has plans for you to give you hope and a future. Isn't that cool? That's kind of a really neat thing to think about. Now, today we decided that we were going to give our Sunday school class supplies that they might use to remember the story, to remember the lesson, maybe do a craft so they can think about what we learned today. So we'll be leaving this at your door, and you can look out there if you didn't get it in already. If you didn't get it, if you're not part of our Sunday school class, but you live in the area and you'd like a bag of supplies, let Pastor Jesse know and we can give them to you. So I'll show you a couple of things that are going to be in our bag today. First, we're giving you some cards, 2 sets of cards actually for each person. And they have pictures, and the pictures are from the life of Moses, because we're going to learn about Moses for the next few weeks. So you can do a couple things. Today you can look in the cards and see if you can find the cards that tell the story about Moses as a baby. Should be the first few cards in your deck, and see if you can retell that story and think about who cared for Moses, who did God send to care for him, and what plan does God have for his life? It's to save the Hebrew people, but we'll learn more about that. We gave you 2 sets of the cards, so you can also play a memory game. You can spread those cards, mix them all up, and spread both sets out on the table. Turn 2 cards over and see if you can find a match. And if you play with someone else, let them have a turn, and then you can take a turn. And see if you can remember where the matches of the cards are and try to find them. You've probably played memory games like that before. And as we learn the story of Moses, you can also take 1 set of cards and see if you can put them in order according to what happened in Moses' life. And that you should be able to do as we learn the story of his life over the next few weeks. So that is going to be right in your bag of supplies that you get. We also have directions, so you'll know what to do with everything that we're giving you. So that will be right in your bag. If you're a preschooler, we have a Find the Baskets page, or if you're older, we have a decoding paper that you can do, and it says at the bottom, what does God have for you? And you can see what God has for you by decoding that. So that's going to go into your bag. And then we have a craft that you can do. And what I did is I made a pretend basket here with my baby inside, and I'm going to see if it floats. And I'm going to see, I can play with it too. Maybe I can put some things in it with the baby and see if they float. And I'll show you just a little bit how to make that. And all the supplies for that are going to be in your bag. So we're going to give you a little blanket for the baby, some Q-tips to paint with, a popsicle stick, that could be your baby, a little plastic container for your basket, and all the paints that you need for this project. And some aluminum foil to put the paints on. But I'll just show you quickly what I did, just as a sample. I took the yellow ochre, I'm not really sure how to say that, O-C-H-R-E, and I took my burnt umber. So I wanted to make mine sort of the color of an actual basket. And I used the Q-tip, and I'm just going to paint part of it to show you. But I used the Q-tip to paint my basket, my pretend basket here, and I painted the whole thing. And I found if I put my fingers inside, I could hold it and not get paint all over my fingers. But after I painted the whole thing, whoops, then I took the brown and I made some lines on it, and I didn't mind if the paints even got a little mixed up together. And I went up and down, and that's what gave me the kind of a basket look. A little bit like a basket, right? But I don't mind what you do with yours. You can make it any colors you want. And you can paint your basket. And then I took my popsicle stick and I put a little face on it. There's my Moses. And I wrapped him up. And then I painted a little piece of cardboard to make a top for the basket, just to keep him safe in case it rained or something happened out there in that Nile River. And I put him inside. And then I'm going to try later on to see if it floats. Okay, you can try yours and see if it floats. All right, so those are things you can do to remind you about our lesson for today. So all during the week you can think about it. And again, mainly we want you to think about, who has God sent to take care of you? How does God watch over you each day? And what is God's plan for your life? And let's say a prayer about that. Okay, can you fold your hands and bow your heads? Dear Lord, thank you so much for bringing us together each week. Thank you for all the people who care for us each and every day. Help us to understand and learn what your plan is for our lives, that we might glorify your name and care for the people of this world as you have sent us to do. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. So look for your bags and take care. See you next week.